Oisin, great to see you, and great to see you looking so well and on the back of what's been a really positive year for you, I think it's fair to say, and it will round off on these shores on QIPCO British Champions Day. How excited are you for what's going to be a very special day, given it's Frankie's farewell as well?
Oh, QIPCO British Champions Day is going to be a massive event. Not only is it Frankie's retirement due, but it's the best racing of the season in Britain compacted into one day. I hope I'll have some really nice rides on the day, probably headlined by Sandrine in the sprint, who I won the Park Stakes on last time, and Coltrane, who was narrowly defeated in the Long Distance Cup, hoping to go one better this time round.
He's been a star. We'll touch on some of your potential rides and the day a bit later on, but let's just take it back to 12 months, because Champions Day for you last year was a very different Champions Day. You were there, but obviously you weren't riding. How were you feeling going to Champions Day 12 months ago?
Well, I was a stone heavier, and my suit was quite tight on me. It was very strange watching it in the stand. I had appreciated it at the Royal meeting. I did a little bit of TV work, and being on the sidelines wasn't easy. But certainly on QIPCO British Champions Day, I wanted to be part of the action, and being up in the box with Sheikh Fahd and cheering on the horses and watching it from afar wasn't easy. And I'm delighted to be back in the saddle this time round.
You did sneak your riding gear on, didn't you? Didn't you do a jockey masterclass on Champions Day?
Yeah, and I thought I did a pretty good job, but my breeches are super tight. I'm lucky they didn't split. It's extraordinary how tight-fitting our equipment is, and when suddenly we put on some weight, it doesn't fit anymore.
The focus, I guess, for you back then was about recovery in many ways. Were you able to sort of remove yourself from the racing and focus on your recovery last year?
I was. I kept my relationship with Andrew Boulding, Ed Walker, Archie Watson, and even in Newmarket with Michael Bell and Saibin Sarur, but I wasn't watching racing every day. I wasn't checking the results numerous times per day, and it was nice to step away. It was certainly one day at a time. I thought Johnny Murter, on one of his interviews for Jets actually, promoted the idea that if you take every day and get through it, when you go to bed you can sign off and think, well, today I got through the day sober, and that's something to be really happy about. And that was the kind of mindset I had for over a year, and then when I got back riding, that obviously continued, but I had a fresh focus and trying to get back to a high level, try and ride winners, and try not to mess up on any horses.
You've always been very good at engaging with your fans, explaining things on a race course, things that go on behind the scenes. Can you give us an insight into what your recovery was like and how tough it was?
I was really lucky to have a lady to speak to twice a week, who I'm still in contact with every week. Her name's Amy Izaki, and I felt like she understood me, and there was no pressure, and I could bring to the table whatever I felt like, and it was just nice to get whatever was on my mind off my mind in the 2 hours each week. And I even spoke to her this morning, so she's been pivotal in my recovery. It's still ongoing. Like anyone with a drink problem or someone who suffers from any sort of illness or mental health issue or addiction issue, there's never an end date, and I really want to remind people of that. But I've been delighted with the way the season's gone. Obviously, like any path in life, it's a roller coaster. We can touch on that, but there was a brilliant start. Then I had a long suspension in July where I missed the July Cup winner, and then I got back in August and September, and QIPCO British Champions Day has been my focus probably from midway through the season. You're always thinking, could that horse go for this particular race? And you're trying to find a star to ride, and I'm really pleased to have some horses to look forward to on the big day.
And just to put a sort of full stop to the journey you've been on, how much different is your life now in terms of how you feel? Forget what happens on the track, but you as a human being, how much different is your life now?
Well, there are no super highs, and as a result there are no huge lows, and obviously there are still days where things aren't going so well and I don't feel on top of the world, but it's easier to bounce back. I'm in a much happier space across the board than I have been in my career to date.
That's so good to hear. That's really, genuinely, forget what we do, that's just really nice to hear from sort of as a human to human that you feel that. It's really important. And I suppose having that different mindset, therefore, how did you approach 2023?
I wanted to get back to a high level and obviously put some pressure on myself to ride as well as I could, but I didn't wake up thinking about the Jockeys Championship every day, and I led it for a while, but I always felt that William Buick and Tom Marquand inevitably were going to have lots of firepower and would probably be too good. I obviously didn't help myself by sitting out most of July, as we already touched on, but I thought I've ridden pretty well, and you know, as a whole, September has been fantastic, and I want to finish that off and bring it into QIPCO British Champions Day and then on to the Breeders' Cup. And if I can do that, then I can pause at the end of it and be pleased with how it's gone.
Was it easy to slide straight back into it in terms of relationship with owners, trainers, jockeys in the weighing room?
I didn't overthink the process before it happened, and actually as we look back on it, it almost seemed seamless. My first ride back at Chelmsford was a winner, and I thought I looked fine on it, but I must have prepared bloody well. I spent a lot of time with George Baker, the ex-jockey, who was a huge help with my riding style and getting back to being able to push and use my whip correctly. And obviously it was upon myself to get fairly fit, and Oaksey House and Lambourne were brilliant.
Were you watching back that first ride, really sort of self-analytical, critical, seeing your riding style, compare it like you were sort of an apprentice again, analysing it?
I must have watched it 10 times,
really?
Because I went straight from Chelmsford to ride in Qatar that night, and waiting to board the plane or whatever. I know I watched it numerous times. Since then I probably haven't, but you know, deep down I was pleased enough with the effort I made to come back.
In terms of numbers, it seems that you really threw yourself into sort of riding as many horses as you could, basically. One of the reasons given for your troubles a few years ago was workload and pressure. And I suppose from what you were saying a few moments ago, it's more about managing expectations as opposed to the actual workload, perhaps is what you may have learned. So did you find that taking on more rides was what you needed to do to just throw yourself back into the day-to-day?
Yeah, I probably didn't have a great understanding of why I failed to deal with the pressures surrounding my riding before. It's as easy go to Kempton for 7 rides as it is for 4. You still, from my home, have to sit in the car for an hour on the way there, an hour on the way back. But the whole stress I put on myself regarding having to ride winners, my strike rate, really got to me. This year in the Jockeys Championship I'm riding at 16%. I'm not particularly pleased about that. In the past it's been upwards of 20, but I can't really do much about it. I've ridden plenty of horses that couldn't win. I've ridden lots of seconds and I can't go back in time. Just have to take it as it is. This month has been great, and we try and focus on the future. I have to, and not look back at what I should have, could have and would have done.
Did you appreciate the big winners more? I mean, Morge at the start of the year was terrific.
Yeah, I never reflected on it. I didn't go home and watch the replay 10 times. I just thought, God, that is the most crazy result. What an absolute machine she is. And thanks to Godolphin and Saibin Sarur and all their guys for getting her there in such great shape. I, looking back, probably have to pinch myself a little bit to how special it is to now have won a QIPCO 2000 and QIPCO 1000 guineas. I never thought or dreamt that would be possible, because I know how difficult it is to win those races.
And given your relationship with Sheikh Farhad, Qatar Racing, through the years, you're great friends as well as being sort of having a working relationship as well. Does winning QIPCO races mean more to you in many ways.
Absolutely, yeah, because I know his family are watching and they'll be shouting for me, and it's been such a fantastic initiative into racing. It covers most of our top races in Britain, and I haven't won enough of them, and the goal is to win as many as I can.
And obviously you'll have a number of chances on QIPCO British Champions Day. You touched on Coltrane. I mean, I spoke to you after he won at York, and I probably did him a little bit of a disservice because he's been a bit of a champion actually in that division for a few years now.
Yeah, sometimes he comes up a little short, but he always runs his heart out. And on his last start at Doncaster, he just ran a little bit flat. But I know the horse really likes a pace to run at, and he likes to pass horses. And although in my opinion, I had him in a very good spot at Doncaster, and Trushan made a big race move, and on ratings it wasn't an unbelievable performance. Coltrane should have been good enough, but every horse is entitled to have an off day, and it'd be brilliant to make amends on his near miss last season when he just came up short.
Another one of your high-profile winners this year was Shaquille at Royal Ascot. I mean, just the most incredible victory. To ride in that race when you missed the start, what's going through your head then?
Well, you're hoping that the race isn't over, but obviously over 1,200 metres in a Group 1 event like that Commonwealth Cup, the race is likely to be over. Fortunately, I was able to gradually creep up onto the back of the field, and he didn't over-race too much, and approaching the 2, I had a chance, and I was able to follow Ryan for a little bit and then switch right off the back of Little Big Bear, and all of a sudden I'd hit the front without asking for maximum effort, and he just let down to the line and galloped out, and he clearly has a huge engine. The majority of horses, even at that level, can't do that, and I was delighted for the team. He's a charm spirit who Sheikh Fahd owned. His mother would have been covered at Tween Hills, and fantastic for an owner breeder. Small stable in Julie Camacho. She clearly can do it at the highest level, and it was brilliant. The feeling of walking back in at the Royal meeting, having just won a Group 1, was amazing, and one I really cherished because I hit the crossbar lots that week. I had so many seconds, and I was trying to keep my morale up, keep the confidence, but it's not easy.
And I suppose actually to pull it back to sort of a sheen in 2023 as opposed to a sheen in the past, when you are hitting the crossbar, to maintain that sort of level feeling, to not let the downs get you too down, was that a challenge at Royal Ascot this year, or were you able to sort of manage it well?
I was able to manage it because I had prepared for the fact that things mightn't go my way, but I want to bring everyone back to Royal Ascot 2021. I had the news leading up to it that I knew the BHA were going to charge me with going to Mykonos, so I was able to treat it as maybe one day at a time, and I knew there was going to be an end date to my riding that season, and not knowing how long a suspension I was about to face, I really grasped the week, and as a result of that, I probably went out with the attitude of focus on the riding, bite the bullet, and I maybe portrayed an element of not caring too much, and that was brilliant because once I won on Berkshire Shadow in the Coventry, things were going my way, and just everything went my way, and I was able to ride truly at my best, and it was just a fantastic feeling, and that didn't last very long, and it never does. Sometimes you have periods of feeling on top of the world. You think you're a Premiership footballer that's scoring goals, and then you go out of form. And I just wanted to bring that up, Oli, because it was a very poignant time, and one that I've been careful not to forget about.
Yeah. Does it give you a sense of perspective?
Absolutely, it does. Yeah. I was able to achieve that week with the weight of the world on my shoulders and maybe about to crumble down, and I was able to hide it and put it in the back of my mind, but there was a realization there that things were about to get quite difficult for me.
And it's a lot, right? Like it's a lot to take, and as it's stuff we don't see. We just talk about a bad ride, a good rider.
Yeah, well, when I'm walking back in and you're asking me questions, I'm thinking, well, this could be the final time, because next week the BHA might tell me, oh, you're not riding anymore. So that really was clear and evident in my riding.
Champions Day is upon us, and I guess it's always a race day where there's real international interest. It's a big international time of year, isn't it? Obviously, you've got the Breeders' Cup, you've got Australia, Hong Kong, not too far away now as well. Do you like the challenge of having raiders from all over the world try and take the prizes?
Yeah, I do. I like that international feel. I like the fact that racing fans from around the world are watching. They're going to see, are looking to see which horses might run well on QIPCO Champions Day and then go on to the Breeders' Cup or Hong Kong international races or wherever in the world. And certainly it's a day where there's plenty of pressure, because the champion jockey is about to be crowned, and I've been lucky to win it 3 times and look forward to picking up the trophy. And also, you know, these are very important races, so I want to be on the best chances I can get on.
Do you think you ride better when you know the eyes of the world are on you? Do you think you're a sportsman that elevates with that heightened pressure?
Well, I try and put on a show, and it's much easier to put on a show when you've got top class horses to ride. It's a bit more difficult when you're going out hoping they'll run well, but maybe knowing deep down that even if everything goes right, they might come up short.
And what is it about the races on Champions Day? Obviously, we know when you get to the top table, the races are of the highest quality. But can you just give us an insight into how competitive those races are to ride in?
Yeah, they're often big fields, and Ascot has its own sense of drama, excitement and pressure, whether that's a normal day or a massive day like QIPCO British Champions Day. And I don't know, there's a big crowd, there's a want and need to achieve.
So sometimes it's soft ground, it's that time of year where you do get soft ground. Does your riding have to change around Ascot in order to sort of accommodate that?
Absolutely, there's timing on a stiff track. You make a little error, move a millisecond too soon, and you've made a huge mistake.
What's been your best ride on Champions Day to date, would you say?
Roaring Line in the QE2. Sheikh Fad's family were there. There was a huge amount of pressure, but I didn't feel it that season, because in 2018 I won like 9 Group 1s, and every week things were just going my way. I was quite young as well, it was 5 years ago, and yeah, I look back on that with very fond memory.
That must have been an amazing day for the family as well.
Yeah, he was a special horse, one that they were able to follow, and you know, he ended up being world champion 3-year-old. It's something you can't take for granted.
We've spoken a lot actually on and off camera about the importance of connecting with fans, and it's something I've mentioned already that you've been incredibly good at throughout your career. But on QIPCO British Champions Day there are jockey masterclasses, there are a lot of sort of educative platforms for new racing fans to get involved in. Even though you're in the sort of proper jockey zone and focusing on your racing, how important is it for you to connect with those people on that day?
I get so many direct messages on my social media platforms of people telling me they're going racing and what time will I be doing the jockey masterclass. And if I can only really make a few people's day better, then that's brilliant. Obviously, I hope I can get at as many fans as I can and engage with them and make their day exciting and insightful. It means a lot to me. I was one of those young people that was stood at the side of the weighing room hoping that jockeys might sign an autograph or give me their goggles. And whether you're young or old, I know that the people producing and creating QIPCO British Champions Day want to ensure that you're having a good time and it's exciting and you want to come back year after year.
And a lot of people will be going racing to say goodbye to Frankie. He'll make a lot of noise that day, won't he?
Yeah, well, it's a unique opportunity. It's going to be his last day riding in Britain, and anyone that hasn't seen Frankie in the flesh before, it's your last chance probably. And if you want to say farewell to him, I know that he's going to put on a show, and he's going to want to be in the winner's enclosure.
What's he been like to ride against, to get to know? I mean, I imagine when you were young you looked up to Frankie Dettori.
Well, even now I do. He's unique. His ability to rev a horse out of the stalls, get them out quickly, and then 5 strides later make them fall asleep is just extraordinary. Thoroughbreds are hot-tempered, highly spirited, and normally when you wake them up it's very hard to calm them down again, and it's probably one of the things that isn't spoken about because it's so easy to go unnoticed. Everyone notices Frankie's flair in the saddle and how stylish he is, and obviously what he does to camera and off the horse, because he's a genuine celebrity. I followed his riding. I'm 28 years of age. I remember watching flat racing from probably the age of 5 or 6. So Frankie Dettori has been at the very top of the sport since that time, but also he's had a period where he couldn't get on good horses. He had an 18-month period where he didn't win any Group 1s, and he suffered a long suspension. He had to come back from that, and obviously anyone who suffers from, has had some lows in their own personal life, you can look at Frankie and realise that you can get back to, to health and greatness.
Has he helped you? Was he an ear in the weighing room that you could call upon?
Frankie's been fantastic. I've mentioned this a few times, but after he won the Irish Oaks on Starcatcher, he texted me, and he didn't have to do this, and said that he thought the world of me. He felt I was a world-class rider, and I had been going through a really bad period. I couldn't ride winners. I was having lots of seconds. I was riding at a very low strike rate, and the next day I went to Goodwood and rode 4 winners, and he was pivotal in making that happen. I know I was probably on good horses the next day at Goodwood, but he filled me with confidence.
And what is it about, is there anything about the way he rides the horse that you implement into your riding and other jockeys do?
Well, everyone tries to ride a little bit like him. You try and be stylish and try and be very balanced, but not everyone can copy him, and we all have to develop our own style in the saddle, but certainly he is the one everyone wants to be like. He's a standout.
I know a lot will be made about sort of losing Frankie and the impact it will have on racing. He will still obviously be involved in racing in quite a large capacity, I'm sure, but what will the impact of not having Frankie in the weighing room be like?
Well, there'll be less noise, and there won't be anyone shouting Oisin the Machine at me or himself. God knows why he says these things, but he's entertaining, and he elevates everyone around him with his good mood and positive demeanour. I hope he'll still be part of racing, maybe as a racing manager for an owner and doing some TV work, and I hope Frankie doesn't disappear.
And how big a send-off will you and the other jockeys give him on the day?
Oh, don't worry, I'll be making him feel as just insignificant as possible. I won't be crying or telling him I'll miss him and how wonderful he is. In a few months' time, when everything has died down, I'll bring up some fond memories of time together.
I know that. Well, I don't know whether you're joking actually, but ultimately you don't.
I'm not joking.
You don't care that it's his last day. You want to beat him on the day, right?
100%, yeah. I'll get great pleasure in Frankie drawing a blank on QIPCO British Champions Day. Although
never seeing a flying dismount again. Basically.
Yeah, it'll be highly unlikely. He will have some brilliant horses to ride. I'd imagine the likes of Inspiral in the QE2, Emily Upjohn in the Fillies and Mares, Courage Mon Ami in the Long Distance Cup, Kinross in the Sprint, probably the favourite in the handicap, although I'll be trying to jock him off whatever he's
It will go off favourite, whatever he's riding, basically.
Yeah, of course it will, of course it will.
he's been a role model for racing. He's had his ups and downs. A lot of people, as we say, speak about the impact of no Frankie riding, and a lot of people have sort of, whether you want it or not, kind of handed that baton over to you as someone who can really engage with fans. Firstly, do you want that baton? Do you like the fact that that's been spoken about?
I genuinely think there are many young jockeys who are equally as capable and better role models because they've made no mistakes. The likes of Tom Marquand and Holly Doyle and David Egan, and there are many others as well. Billy Loughnan's coming through. Benoit de la Sayette, I think, is going to be a top rider. Kieran Schumacher is riding more and more on the big stage. Ross Ryan. Of course, I'm going to leave names out. Callum Rodriguez, Jason Hart. There are many, and we have the older guys as well, William Buick and James Doyle, who are brilliant speakers. And I think racing really is in a healthy place as long as these jockeys continue to engage. And I'm certainly comfortable talking about horses, and I like discussing, top class racing because it is my life, and I have an appreciation for the sport.
I know it might seem like a really stupid question, but there are some very good, engaging young jockeys in there. Have you ever spoken about sort of your responsibilities away from racing and gone, come on lads, and the other jockeys in the weighing room, we've got to step up here?
I think there is a level of intelligence that everyone is aware that competition with other sports has never been greater, and ITV racing is pivotal to the future of British racing. And when we are in front of camera, pre and post race interviews, it's important to be engaging, and it's up to ourselves to secure the future of our sport.
And just the final point about being a role model, you mentioned you've had ups and downs, and other jockeys have had a slightly smoother ride, but in many ways you are a role model, and the fact you've had downs and lows, people will connect with that. Do you have any advice I know every case is individual and not every case is the same, but do you have any advice to people who might be suffering, who might be going through what you went through, given where you're at now, that you can sort of impart to them?
Yeah, no matter how bad it seems or it is on the day, it won't be as bad when time passes, and sometimes you have to bite the bullet, take a deep breath, deal with it for what it is. But remember, it's not the end of the world, and I've said it before, and I don't mean to be sharp, but people have short memories, and today's bad news is tomorrow's fish and chip paper.
And do you have any advice for people going racing on Champions Day, and what they should do, how they should enjoy it, how they should get involved?
Wrap up warm.
Bring a brolly.
Yeah, certainly as we get into the autumn months, it can be a bit cold there, and obviously it's quite a big open space. But have a great time. The gates are opening early. There'll be plenty to do before racing. You have obviously incredible racing throughout the day and then a concert afterwards. So, have a super time, and I hope you book tickets for next year.
And speaking of next year, my final question, because it has, as a friend of yours, been so nice to see you in 2023, enjoying life, looking healthy, feeling great, as you said, and it seems really authentic, which is great. You're young, you're 28, you've got a lot of riding to do, you've got a huge career ahead of you, and I'm sure many more champion jockey titles coming your way. How does the future now look in Oisin Murphy's eyes?
One day at a time, but obviously I do have to look for horses like leading up to QIPCO British Champions Day and then the Breeders' Cup. They don't just come along, so you're always searching for those stars, but I'm in a good place. I've never enjoyed riding more. At the same time, I'm aware that life changes quickly, and next week mightn't be as good as this week. So we just have to enjoy it for when it's good, Oli. And I don't think there's much more to add. I am in a good place, and keep smiling.
Well, for you, I hope we don't see a Frankie flying dismount on Champions Day.
Exactly.
For the crowd, maybe I do, but win, lose or draw, have a brilliant QIPCO British Champions Day, and thanks so much for joining us, Oisin.
Thanks very much, Oz.